Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bleakheaven. I am your host, the Birdman, and today with us we have Mr. Alex, I forget your last name.
McCaulley.
McCaulley! How are you?
Doing pretty well.
Dude, tell the audience about yourself. Let's go into the deep dive, the mystical world of Alex McCaulley.
It's not that much to me.
Easier question. How did you meet Cade or Stanley?
Well, we were working at a restaurant together.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was, long nights sometimes, so we just wound up talking, and it was just kind of like, had kind of a similar sense of humor, so that kind of helped get it started, and then stayed kind of close after that. It's been good ever since.
Coming together, thinking dynamic ideas. That's how it usually begins, right?
It is.
Of course, unfortunately, I didn't work with at a restaurant, so I can't really relate.
It's okay.
Only the cool kids get
Only the cool kids work at restaurants.
Yeah, exactly.
Work for minimum wage, kids. It's good for you.
You say you and him talked about a lot of, stuff. What in general would you guys talk about?
So we talk about movies a lot because, that's kind of a common interest. So probably one of the first I remember is talking about Godzilla.
Oh,
just because it was pretty awesome. I love Godzilla.
Like which Godzilla? Like old school 50s
So you gotta
Godzilla?
love the old stuff for how campy it is.
Sure, of course.
But then probably my favorite serious Godzilla is probably the Shin Godzilla.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I dig it. It's kind of an interesting satire piece, which is kind of unexpected. So, but yeah,
that is unexpected. Yeah. That's a dope answer. I didn't even think about that one. Project-wise, what would you guys talk about? How did he get you into Bleakheaven?
Well, he just kind of came up one day and he was like, hey, this is kind of the outline. And I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool. So he said, hey, I want you to create a character. I'm like, okay. And so I got kind of, sat back, thought about that for a little bit, and then I was like, I'm a big history guy. So I was like, what's kind of a weird take? And so that's kind of how I came up with Erwin. The way I put it is, what if Captain America had fought for the Nazis and now really feels bad about it?
Okay, now you have to tell me more.
Yeah,
now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so basically the idea behind him was Germany, post-war, was in kind of this weird place because, everybody had been a Nazi. Now nobody was.
Now nobody was.
Right? Because that's not cool. No. Obviously, disclaimer, Nazism was bad.
No way, really?
That kind of got me thinking, what if, a soldier had problems with that, right? But still had to go, fight. Get drafted on the Eastern Front and stuff like that. And how would he kind of deal with that afterwards? Especially as he kind of lives longer and longer. Because, he ages slower than normal people. So that's kind of one of his things.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Kind of how would he deal with that through kind of the generations, right? Yeah. So moving from, here was this bad thing.
Yeah.
How do we kind of find redemption and move past that? So that was kind of the basic idea, and then kind of been working on it from there.
I'm guessing, just because of the way I'm thinking about it, you say he's kind of like a Captain Nazi, right? Now he's moving into, he has to move on from that into the free world, and I can only imagine his reactions.
So he's not a hardcore SS type.
Yeah.
But he's more kind of the reluctant, where kind of the everyday German citizen was. They were it's better than being dead or in prison.
Oh, okay. So he's not extreme in that sense.
So he's not
he kept his head down to the point where, okay.
Yeah, but he still had to, kind of work through not standing up against this, this wrongdoing.
Oh.
This is this great evil that he's had to deal with. So, and then kind of moving past that, helping people to heal there and then find redemption for himself.
Oh man, that sounds really cool. That's a really cool idea. That's the best idea I've heard yet from this entire project. Donald Ruse, eat your heart out. They're gonna kill me for saying that.
I win. Fix it in post.
Along with everything. Everything gets fixed in post. Obviously, you're writing this entire endeavor, right? So, like, do you use any certain writing technique?
So I'm kind of a visual guy. So I've kind of got a picture in my head when I'm starting. And then I take it to paper and I sketch out more of like a flow chart, right? So I'm like, I know I want this to happen, right?
Sure.
And then I'll kind of think of the dialogue, what's around that. So I lay that out. And I'll be like, okay, that's kind of like a scene. And then I just got to lay that out, step by step. And I'll do lots of like colors. So I can keep track of like, who's supposed to be, who's this that's talking, who's that,
Sure.
And then kind of think of like, almost like camera angles, right? Like, describe the scene and then set kind of the narrative inside that.
Sure, you can kind of just go with like one scene and kind of just write around.
Yep.
I'm the exact same way when I write, dude. When
I try to like lay it out in like a novel form, just like words on a page, I'm just like, yeah, but what is this though?
I am exactly that visual type. Like, I have problems trying to get the words out for the majority of the time. Like, I'm not a thespian. I can't just say things like Shakespeare and it just flows from me, you know? Yeah. I see the scene itself and I'm just like, what would I say in that scene? And then I just go from there, But no, that's awesome.
Yeah. And that's why it's helpful to have other people. Because sometimes they'll punch up the dialogue.
True.
So I'll just be like, yeah, that's neat. And they're like, yeah, but we need to put some actual dialogue in it. Let's put some words on there. And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, too.
Right? They're like, oh, because, it's not a silent movie or anything. It's just not a whole bunch of people just going, just looking at each other, like, throughout the entire movie. In which cases, I would love to do a movie like that, where they just stare at each other.
It's my life. I don't know what you're talking about.
The only way they communicate is just through, like, body language. They just look at each other. It's just like the Return of the Jedi nod, where they're all just nodding at each other right at the beginning.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I see it. How did you come up with Erwin? Like, what gave you the inspiration for Erwin?
Just kind of having that history background, so I kind of have like a lot of stuff floating around. And really just what I thought was, taking this time frame, it's just, been 3 or 4 generations of like actual people. Sure. And what if you had just had one guy live through all that, right? Like all the change there.
Sure.
And just the end of the 20th century, and like, how would they process that? Especially if they didn't come from, the right side of history. Like, how would they adjust and kind of, work through it and become a better person through that?
Because you would think it'd be like a long road ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I can see that. That's pretty cool. Like 4 generations, though. I mean, man, that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. Like, it's hard enough to deal with one generation, let alone.
Yeah.
At the end, I think after the end of like that whole. The first generation, he'd probably just look at it and be like, I'm done. Throwing in the towel.
I can say there will be some of that, especially with technology.
Yeah, oh, really?
He stops at a certain point and doesn't move further.
Just picture him on a keyboard like a grandpa.
Absolutely. He hasn't figured out Facebook yet. We're working on Windows.
Windows is a good start. And we're not talking about the windows you stare out of.
See, important clarification there.
Well, you say you're a history buff. Like, what exactly do you like?
I find the Cold War fascinating. Just because, at least partially, there's part of it where it's one of the biggest, like, unanswered questions. Like, who really would have won if we'd really gone at it? Right answer is probably nobody.
Yeah, no one would have won.
Everybody would have lost.
Yeah.
But then it's just really interesting, kind of the influence and all this, kind of how it shaped where we are today. Stuff you don't even think about. Like, back in the day, it seemed like a good idea to just be like, yeah, let's ship all these weapons to Afghanistan. It's not like we're going to go fight there, right?
Yeah, exactly. One-sided political view,
Yep. And you just kind of go, oh, maybe that was a bad idea. But you never could have seen that back in the day when it was like, no, but the Russians are pretty bad right now.
Yeah, see, and that I understand that, and that's what that entire idea really resonates with me, especially when people like they bring up World War II as an analogy, and I'm like, you realize the 1940s are very different than what it was how it is now.
You also do see like some of the same problems, like you know, you just have a bunch of people who are really angry, not really at anybody.
Yeah.
They're just like, man, I really got screwed by that whole, you know, having to pay like $1 billion to somebody thing.
Exactly.
And then, you know, all it takes is like one really bad guy to say, hey, I know who we can hate. Just listen to me.
Come together.
It's a problem. Yeah, it's like, let's all go hate those guys over here. Yeah. Pretty bad, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's all it takes.
Yeah,
the little
exactly.
what is it? They say it only takes one man to alter the balance of history.
Yep.
It's just crazy. You have to wonder, like, what was said, you know, to, like, really... People must have to been, like, really down in the dumps to, like, just give up everything for one person's ideal.
Yeah. And then also there's sort of the dynamic of once you hit a certain point, you just kind of go along with the crowd, right? One of the kind of interesting and somewhat terrifying stories to come out of that is a Jewish newspaper reporter was attending one of these Nazi rallies, right? I believe it was either Hitler or, you know, one of those big guys was like, man, we hate the Jews. And everybody was like, yeah. And this Jewish reporter found himself going, yeah. And then he was like, wait. Right? He's like, wait, why did I do that?
I'm a Jew.
It's because there's like all these other people there, you know, all
you're terrified.
Worked up.
Yeah.
And it's just... Sometimes
different.
it's some dangerous stuff.
Obviously now, like, you look at it from now's perspective as opposed to back then. If you were back then, you would realize it's more probably peer pressured type of, like, you know.
That's definitely a part of it. But then, like, there's a kind of the peer pressure for the culture, but then there's also that kind of core of obviously very wrong, but true believers, right?
Sure.
And they're dangerous.
I've met multiple people nowadays who just are so easily manipulated by what the TV tells them as opposed to just finding the truth for themselves. And it's crazy.
Well, and then when everybody says, no, what we say is the truth, and those don't match up, right?
Yeah.
Both sides are saying, yeah, we're right. Normally the truth is, you know, maybe somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Sometimes
it's always in the gray area.
Yeah.
You always find it in the gray area, you know? It's the truth is always the give and the take at the same time. Most people are just like, we don't want to find those. That's too complicated.
It's hard. You don't want to do hard things.
Yeah.
It's not good for you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean,
talk about comic books.
It's hard not to talk about it because your character takes place in such a political time period. 4 generations, that's a lot of politics to get through, you know? He's seen a lot of stuff.
Yep.
I already asked you about your process. Let's see here.
Not very good.
Your process is really good.
It works for me, but not for a lot of other people.
You know, people. And this is crazy because I know a lot of people who have a lot of different writing styles. You know, your writing style is the one that I've actually related to the most. Everybody else's is like, I just start with the character and then I go from there. And I'm just like, I can't. Like, I have to picture something that I'm going to put the character into. Yeah. It's always a dynamic scene, and then I want to write around that entire scene and see what makes it great.
Yeah, works for me.
What do you think of the art so far and Erwin's design? We don't know what his design looks like, so tell us what his design looks like. What does he look like when we picture Erwin?
So, he's wearing sort of this suit of armor.
Okay.
So, got his face covered with a helmet. Pretty neat. He's actually in, I believe it's issue 2. If you look in the back, like the last panel, those guys are bursting in the door.
Oh, really?
He's in that picture. Now, if people buy the poster, he's right there. The blue helmet there.
The blue helmet right here? That's him.
That's him.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, now people have to buy the poster to know what we're talking about. Yeah. So, get on that.
Get on getting the poster.
Get on that merch. Come on.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, look. I always wondered who that character was.
Yeah, that's him.
Obviously, we see what his helmet looks like. What would the body look like? What would the armor look like?
So, he's going to be a little roughed up because of some stuff relating to how he gets to Bleakheaven.
Sure.
So, he's going to have basically some, like, mainly chest armor, pretty cool gloves, and a little bit of a cape, which may or may not be a spoiler for later in the story on how he gets that. He acquires it along the way.
Okay. What does he have in his arsenal? What does he use?
So, typically, he'll use whatever's, like, closest to hand.
Okay.
But, like, preferred weaponry, he's coming from a military background, so he's going to be using a lot of, you know, just conventional military ordnance.
Okay.
And just kind of being good with whatever he grabs.
So he just picks up a trash can.
Yeah, he just picks up a trash can and goes full pro wrestler.
Well, that's really cool. So describe the armor a little bit. Is like the armor kind of like an exosuit kind of armor?
Yeah, so that's kind of the direction that we're going. Is a little bit of a kind of like a near future exosuit. So we're not, weird later Iron Man movies,
sure,
like nanotechnology going everywhere, but
course,
just like a solid exosuit. It's going to give him some enhanced like speed and strength because...
Well, you'd hope so. If he's using anything to, like, if he, how's he going to fight back?
He also has a really, like, long-term healing factor.
Sure.
So we're not talking Wolverine where, like, his skin's coming off and he's like, 2 days later, he's like, I'm fine, guys, don't worry about it.
More like
he breaks a leg and he's okay within a couple days.
Oh, okay. So he's got, more of, like, the super soldier type of, like, healing
that's
factor.
kind of a little bit of the mold that we're going for.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so.
That's intriguing. It's like you have the mix between a Captain America and an Iron Man, but not too much Iron Man and not too much Captain America.
Yeah,
it's like the perfect
It's like the Reese's peanut butter cup of superheroes.
Yeah.
What can you say? If you like Reese's peanut butter cups, if you don't, imagine your favorite candy. That's it.
Nuts.
Part of his backstory may or may not be unethical Nazi experiments on him.
Of course. Every great story comes with Nazi experiments. Is there anything I'm missing out? Like, is there anything you would like to tell people more in particular about?
So, one of the things we're doing is we're doing a sort of a prequel series to Bleakhaven.
Cool.
Centered around Erwin. It's going to be in the late 60s, early 70s.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, hippie Erwin. Nice.
He's not a hippie, but there will be hippies. Yeah.
Erwin's take on Led Zeppelin. I want to hear it.
Nice. Not to give too much away, but like there are going to be some conspiracy theories involved. And so there's kind of a mixture of things that led me to this idea. Some being conspiracy theories, some being actually the history of the assassins, if you know kind of about that.
I don't think so.
So specifically the part that intrigued me and kind of sparked an idea was they would, back in the day they were in Iran area.
Mm-hmm.
They had this castle and they would bring in these new guys, dope them up on drugs, and they got to get true believers to go kill people, right? So what's the best way to do that? You take them in there, you have this little head that seems to talk to them and be like, yeah, dude, paradise is real. They brought me back as a head to just tell you it's all cool, dude.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, nothing really sparks true inspiration like a talking head.
Yeah. And I mean, behind the scenes, it was just a dude with his head like stuck through a board, and they were just doped up on so many drugs that they were like, cool, dude, the head's talking to me.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so there's a little bit of that, a little bit of some conspiracy theories.
Okay.
Which, I don't want to talk too much about that because it's kind of a major point, but
no. Let's not get in too much into the conspiracy theory itself. But that's cool. Is there anything I'm missing about Erwin? Is there anything more you'd like to add? See, this is hard. Yeah, this is hard.
I'm trying to add without spoiling. It's really difficult.
I hate not spoiling things. I truly enjoy seeing things as they unfold. At the same time, I'm like,
just tell me.
Just tell me.
Yeah, I get that.
Right.
I can't wait to get into it.
Right.
Start doing it. That's the main thing. Yeah, there's just so much stuff I'm looking forward to.
Okay, so he obviously has tech, right? What other kind of tech does he kind of have?
So he's gonna have an armored vehicle. Okay. They're gonna kind of use to get around the city.
Okay.
That'll be pretty neat, I think.
All right.
I'd say there's going to be some more tech in the prequel series.
Okay.
Some kind of Cold War era stuff that I think will be pretty neat.
All right. So, for full description for the car guys that listen to this, right? So, what are we talking about? Give us the specifics in the car without the tech. I'm not asking gadgets because obviously you want to see people go, "Wow, what's the gadgets?" But like the car itself, what we got going on? Okay. So, what kind of car is it?
What I've been picturing.
Okay.
Because I know we haven't worked out the details 100%.
Okay.
But I've been picturing more of like an 8-wheeler. If you've seen a lot of something kind of like the Striker, that kind of like armored scout car.
Okay.
If you kind of know what I'm talking.
I think so. I think I know what you're talking about.
So that kind of like low profile, I guess for the sci-fi people. Picture sort of the APC from Aliens.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we're talking.
All right.
Again, this is in my head, so details may change.
No, that's great. Engine-wise, we'll be talking about what we got in under the hood of that bad boy.
Unfortunately, like I don't know, like a V6.
You're gonna roll around. It's gonna be a 6-wheeled armor vehicle with a Subaru Impreza engine in it. Yeah, it's just gonna be a turbo V6. We go hard, but only for economy, for fuel economy. Well, obviously it's German made, so it's gonna be a brilliant car, right?
Yeah.
It's just gonna have a Volkswagen Bug engine in it.
Volkswagen Bug. Imagine that, but with more wheels, more armor.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, if you're picturing in your head a Volkswagen Beetle, that's basically it. Have we officially derailed the podcast?
Not at all. We're on topic. What are you talking about?
Perfect.
We're beautiful. We're hitting the top tier content right now. Apparently, we're supposed to talk about some events that are coming up.
Yes.
The first event, Bleakhaven's having a charity event on the 23rd, July 23rd.
Stand for the Silent for that one.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
We had Stand for the Silent on the previous podcast.
Yeah,
and that was pretty good.
It was pretty neat.
I thoroughly enjoyed getting Kirk Smalley's impression of like Bert the Mothman and everything.
Yeah, and see him stand there. This is actually the first time I've seen the full size.
Same
I gotta say, that's pretty neat.
I was like,
I dig it.
I walked in here and I was like, Skolvin's got a friend, man.
Yeah.
Like, look at that.
Slowly but surely, the family grows.
We're gonna walk in here one day and he's just gonna have cardboard cutouts of every character in this entire room.
That would be great.
That would be awesome.
That would be so cool. I can't wait.
Everybody's like, you want to get a picture with Skolvin? No, I want to get a picture with Bert the Mothman. Look at him, dude.
Look at that.
That's just awesome. And if you guys were wondering where the event is located, it's at 1785 South, 4130 West, Suite L. It's in Salt Lake. Go check out that charity event that's coming up this month. It's well worth it.
I look forward to it.
We got a bunch of events going on.
This will actually be the first time I show up at any event.
Really?
So if you're wondering what I look like, if you're sitting there going, yeah, but who is this guy? You'll be able to see me. You'll be able to prove that I am in fact a person. Not just Cade with a different voice.
With a different voice?
I promise.
I thought you were just an animatronic, a really high-powered animatronic that I've just been talking to.
I broke out of like Disney World a few years back, so you know.
Dude, that's awesome. Tell me more. Another event that's coming up, Bleakhaven will be at the Utah Fandom Show on the July 31st and August 1st. I'm not going to tell you the addresses for one of these places, but you can always go on to Bleakhaven on Facebook or at bleakhaven.com, and I'm pretty sure it'll be on there. We'll be at Utah Fandom Show July 31st and August 1st. The Wasatch Comic Con on August 13th and the 14th. The BTNT Swap Meet on August 28th.
Neat.
Who doesn't love a good swap meet?
Yeah,
you know?
I'm down for that.
I love swap meets. And then, of course, FanX. The big cheese, so to speak.
Nice.
If you don't know what FanX is, you're just, either you don't live in Utah or you just go to the big Comic-Con everywhere else. And that'll be on September 16th through the 18th. There's all year events. To check out more events, like I said, go to bleakhaven.com or go to the Bleakhaven on Facebook or on Instagram.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
That's totally where it's at. Any more to add?
This would be kind of weird at the end, but I don't know if you want to talk about how I got into comics, because I'm actually maybe the outsider here in that I was not into comics until a couple of years ago. Because growing up, my exposure to all these characters was mostly the good old 1960s animated Spider-Man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like Ditko and stuff.
Yep.
Nice.
It really got weird there at the end, but that happens when you run out of budget.
Sure.
But yeah, that was my path. It was not through like comic books themselves, but through like associated media, I suppose.
Sure.
So like back in the day, it was the Superman, like the old time radio programs.
Oh wow.
Yeah. yeah, felt like getting those on tape from the library, just like, this is great.
That is really great. See, and I'm finding out more of those now as opposed to, like, what initially got me into that stuff was, like, at a young age, my dad, I think my dad really regrets this because, my dad introduced me to the 1978 Superman, Christopher Reeve.
Nice.
That's what got me into everything. My dad was a big Christopher Reeve fan. He loved that movie. It's like the only superhero movies. I think he's only watched that and like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man,
nice.
1 and 2. He's like those were the only things that really got him into it. And he's not a comic book fan by any means. He will you ever ask him about it, he will look at you and be like, I don't do that stuff. That's stupid. I think the first comics that I read were like the Ultimate Spider-Man comics back in the day. But, I mean, they were, like, scholastic, comic books. They weren't, like, the good comic books.
The good stuff.
I'm the same way, man. Like, I'm just barely getting to, like, all of the great comic books. Like, Marvel, I just barely started going to the deep dive with Marvel. Like, I was more of a DC kid than anything. Yeah. Like, if it had anything to do with Batman, I was into it. Like, that was immediately my takeaway. Like, I used to come home and watch the reruns of the 60s Adam West Batman, and like all my friends would be like, "This why would you even take the time to watch it?" It's like, you're old enough to have watched. You're young enough to where you can watch Tim Burton's Batman and thoroughly enjoy it, but you're watching Adam West. I'm like, yeah, Adam West is great.
Yeah, the classic Batman.
The classic Batman.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I feel that totally. You got started with the old Superman radio drama series.
Yeah, my dad was kind of into like old time radio.
Sure.
Just all that old stuff, and so they were listening to those, and then there were some animated adaptations of those that they did also in, I believe, the 30s or 40s. Mm-hmm. So got those on DVD, I believe.
Oh, cool.
And so watched those, and I was just like, wow, that's really neat. As a kid, just be like, that's the stuff. And so, just kind of growing up with that aspect of it. And then a couple years ago, being like, I should maybe check out these comic books. like the stuff is based on.
If they're as good as the and most of them are really good. Yeah. There are some comic books I've read that I'm just like, why did I waste my time? Like, this is just not for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the same way. So I'm a big Star Wars fan. Like, I'm a massive Star Wars fan. That's just all that I ever got into. behind Superman. My cousins, they had the original, like, collector's edition of all 3 of the, like, Star Wars movies. The original movies that weren't, edited.
Nice.
Yeah, so I got to see the actual Star Wars movies, and I was like, this is amazing. I love this. And now, a couple years ago, I found out that they did a radio dramatization of Star Wars, and I was like, they even had Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker in it. And it's so cool because it's like you're listening to the movie, but with extra scenes.
Yeah, with all those extra bits. Those are so good.
Like, you find out more of Luke's backstory on Tatooine. Like, you get to hear him in his pod. He gets to do a little bit of pod racing, in the beginning. Hangs out with Biggs Darklighter. It's like, you
find out where is Tashi Station.
Yeah, exactly.
Finally answered.
Right?
Go listen to the audio drama. It tells you.
It's so good. If you're a major nerd and you like Star Wars, I highly recommend it.
Oh, yeah.
What Return of the Jedi, like Return of the Jedi's dialogue, where Vader, that final scene between like Luke, Vader, and Palpatine and everything, it's completely different from the watching it. You watch it and you're like, it's okay. Yeah. But you listen to the dialogue and you're like, man, why didn't they just say this?
Yeah, why didn't they just do this? Somebody cut that into the original.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, those are also one of those things where, for a while, I was actually working a paper out with my dad.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things, like, cruising between houses. we'd be listening to that episode 4, the audio drama, and it was just like, it's really good. It's like one of those memories where it's like, yeah, that was the good times.
That's really cool.
That was it. And I was like, yeah.
Oh, man. I think about a year or two ago I found out about that, and I was like, I still to this day go to work and I still just listen to them and I throw them on because I'm just like, there's so much detail.
Yeah.
I never really got into like radio dramas until like most recently, and there's so many great radio dramas out there. I don't know if you've heard on Stitcher, there's a radio drama called Marvels.
I don't think I have.
Oh, worth it.
Is it?
So worth it. It's this entire radio drama that's about, it's like a photographer. You got Ben Urich and you got Phil Sheldon witnessing Galactus from a person's point of view.
Oh, neat.
Doing interviews with all these people. They interview Ben Grimm, Fantastic Four. Spider-Man makes an appearance in it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and there's just, the whole story of it is just... Galactus comes there, creates havoc on New York City. This is in the 60s, by the way, so this takes place during the time of, like, X-Men and everything's in it. Like, the mutants are the odd men out, and it's going right through the Vietnam.
Oh, nice.
I gotta
look this up.
It's worth it. It's so worth it. It's great, man. Like, they give you the impression that Reed Richards caused this entire thing to happen, and, like...
Isn't that the truth, though?
Of course. It's always the truth. But since we've branched off, but that's really cool that, that gives people more of an in-depth, how you got into that stuff. And that's great. Where can people find do you have, like, a social media presence? Do you care?
I technically have a Facebook page.
You have a Facebook page?
It's just if you find me.
Okay.
Little Easter egg hunt for the fans. I probably won't follow you back. I don't post anything. But if you find me, you could be like, I know who that is.
I feel that, man. Yeah, I feel that.
You could be the millennial. You could be like, I followed him before it was cool.
Right? Exactly.
Spoiler alert, it'll never be cool.
See, I'm one of those people that just finds it really weird. Like, I went into my Facebook and I added Walden as a friend, right? Everybody knows Walden Wong. He's been on the podcast a couple of times.
I loved his episodes.
Oh, man. Great episodes. I added him as a friend, and he's a friend with literally every major comic creator in DC and Marvel. I have in my friend suggestions, like... Arthur Adams. I have in my friend suggestions Mike Mignola, and I'm just like, I wanted to add those guys as a friend, and I can't do it because they don't know me.
Yeah.
I think that's gonna conclude our epic podcast for today. I think we're coming to the end.
If you look, you can maybe find me on the street and like throw something at me.
Do it. And on that epic note, we bid you adieu. I have been the Birdman. This has been Welcome to Bleakheaven, and thank you, Mr. Alex McCaulley.
I think it's great.
See you later.
Peace out.